Hi and welcome or welcome back to The Books Are Everywhere. So today it is time for my April wrap up. I honestly can't believe it is May now and we are even talking about my April wrap up. We're over a quarter of the way through the year. We're over a third of the way through the year. Okay, let's not think about that. Let's talk about the books I read in April. So I managed to read 11 books in April, which is the same amount as I read in March. So I'm sensing a trend here with like my upper limit of how many I can read in a month, which is weird how consistent it is considering the page numbers are probably quite different. But before I start with the books I actually finished in April, just want to give a little nod to this beast that is House of Sky and Breath, because I read this much in April. So I thought I'd just like quickly give a little chat about it in this video, a little mention, because I did read that 150 pages in April and I do intend to carry on with this book. It's just that, like, although I want to read this book and it was really drawing me in when I was reading it and I wanted to sit down and read it, I don't have the time to make this my priority right now. There is always other books that I need or want to read within the month, and other TBR books that I want to complete. So this is having to be put on the back burner even though I don't want it to, because I was really enjoying it. But yeah, just a nod. So I'm still reading House of Sky and Breath and I will finish it soon. Maybe in June, maybe? I honestly don't know if I'm going to have the time to read this in May. The way I see it is like after I read all of my April TBR, I was like, oh, I'll pick up this, and then I don't think I had enough time at the end of the month. And I don't know if I will in May either, but just a nod. You might see this in my May wrap up as well. And hopefully I'll have actually finished it by then. So let's get on to the books I actually managed to start and finish in the month of April, and this is in order of when I read them. So to start, we have How to Kidnap the Rich by Rahul Raina, and this one was a thriller book. This was our thriller of the month at Waterstones, so I picked it up because I have actually been enjoying thrillers more lately. And I did enjoy it, but it wasn't quite for me, which is kind of what I predicted. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars in the end. This one was kind of like a slower thriller that had some more elements to it about culture and things that were going on in the country at the same time. So it's said to have kind of the same tone as like Crazy Rich Asians and things like that. So this one follows Ramesh, who lives in Delhi. I think he grew up in Delhi, and he grew up working at his father's tea stall, and then to make money as he gets older he starts sitting exams for other people, and during this he gets basically into a mess and he ends up having to stick with this guy who he didn't win the exam, he got the best score in the country or in the area for this guy, and because of that like their lives become very interconnected and he has to stay in this guy's life, and it's kind of like them kind of trying to cover their tracks in all of this. Obviously Rudy, the guy who he sat the exam for, doesn't want people to know, and Ramesh doesn't want to be found out either. This was funny, and funny was like one of its top points for me, is that it actually made me laugh out loud. I did find it very satirical, it's quite biting, but I did just find it quite slow to get through and I didn't really find myself wanting to pick it up, which was sad. It is quite a short book as well, so I wanted to like get through it quite quickly, and I think that wasn't helped by the fact the chapters were quite long for a thriller and I wanted them to be a lot shorter. Like a thriller to me, I want them to be like a couple of pages long. That's what keeps me like addicted, but this was a slower thriller that had more of a discussion of like wider nature of the country and the culture, and it's called How to Kidnap the Rich. Like there was a lot of discussions of class divide and wealth divide, which were really interesting, but it wasn't quite the thriller that I wanted. But I did still enjoy it and I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. And the next one I picked up was The Shadow of the Wind by Carlos Ruiz Zafón. I read this one on audiobook, which I'm really glad because this one was quite intimidating, and I did read this for my Magical Readathon TBR, which I will go through at the end of this video how I managed to do with my Magical Readathon TBR as well. But I managed to complete this one, and I did enjoy this, but I wanted to enjoy it a little bit more. At the start of this book I was thinking this was a 5 star. The writing is absolutely amazing, it's told really beautifully, but it was very long and I'm glad I read it on audiobook for that reason. This one follows Daniel throughout his kind of teenage years, I would say. And at the start of this book, he is taken by his dad to this labyrinth of books where he lives in Barcelona, and he's told to choose a book, and he chooses The Shadow of the Wind by Julian Carax, and he reads this book, he absolutely loves it. But after he finishes reading this book, these mysterious things start happening, and they are around Julian Carax's life. So the remainder of the book is basically him trying to find out what happened to this author who hasn't been seen really in a long time, and the kind of connections he makes along the way while he's trying to find more of his books and things like that. I did really like the atmosphere of this one, and I liked the mystery element, but I just wanted something a little bit more from it. I wanted like more romance or more thriller elements, more of a mystery, but I did still enjoy it. I think it just didn't quite hit that 5 stars for me by the end of the book. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars, and it's just a bit disappointing because I think it could have hit that 5 stars from the start of the book. But I will carry on with this series because I did still enjoy it. I then picked up what I think was my only 5-star book of the month, and that was The Last Bear by Hannah Gold. This is a middle grade book that is just so heartwarming and absolutely beautiful. It follows this girl called April who travels to this Arctic island with her dad, and her dad is a person who like monitors the weather, I think, and they live in this like little cabin on this island, and when she lives there she explores the island and she becomes friends with the last polar bear, who is not meant to be on this island. It is just a story of courage and of growth and of friendship and love, and there is a story of grief as well. There is so much kind of emotion and sadness, but in this beautiful way that I think is written so well for children. This was our kids book of the month because it won the Children's Book Prize for Waterstones this past year, and I just absolutely adored it. I fell in love with it. I also bought The Lost Whale, which is Hannah Gold's newest release, and I can't wait to read it because this one I just felt completely absorbed by the pages. It was exactly what I needed at the time to just like fall into this story where I didn't have to think about stuff. I could just like read this and forget about everything else. It was so beautiful, and yeah, I loved it. 5 stars. Also has some great discussions of climate change that are approachable for children. So much about it that I loved. Yeah, read The Last Bear. I then read 2 graphic novels which I will talk about together, and that was Nightlights and Andhikoti by Lorena, I never know how to pronounce her name, Lorena Alvarez Gomez. This is a graphic novel series that follows a young girl who can basically like make these beings appear. You don't really know whether they're in her mind or what's really going on, but basically she draws these characters and they kind of come to life, and on the second one she goes on this school trip to like a swamp essentially, and becomes friends with some of the kind of creatures who live there. It is really beautiful. It's a little sinister in places, a little dark, but it's a really beautiful series. I'm still not sure whether these are like graphic novels aimed at children. I think they're middle grade graphic novels, to be honest, but they are like written in a picture book style but with this comic book format. As you can see, some of the illustrations are really weird, but they are absolutely beautiful as well. I read these on a summery afternoon sat in the garden, and I rated them both 4 out of 5 stars. I then picked up 2 books I will also talk about together, and that is The Conference of the Birds and The Desolations of Devil's Acre by Ransom Riggs. I'm going to put one down because they're heavy. And I rated these, this one was 3.5 and The Desolations of Devil's Acre was 3 stars, and this is the 5th and 6th book in the Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children, or Miss Peregrine's Peculiar Children series, and I definitely see this as 2 different trilogies, which I think I've said in many a video. I'm glad I finally finished this series because I do feel like it got quite competitive towards the end, which is why repetitive towards the end, which is why I rated the last one 3 stars and this one slightly higher. I listened to them both on audiobook, which I really liked the audiobooks for, but I did feel like I missed out on the images that were in here, and I do love what the images add to the story. I just haven't really had the time to sit down and read them, and if I can read stuff on audiobook, that is a massive help. So yeah, I picked these both up on audiobook. I actually read this one in a day and it was just so fun and entertaining, and I think that is what I feel about these stories now, is that they are just fun and entertaining but a little bit predictable because of the way the stories go. There was so much plot crammed into the last one though. I was shook by how much was in here. It was crazy. It's like this is the plot of like multiple books. But yeah, obviously I can't tell you much about this, but the first one follows Jacob, who after his granddad dies, he kind of ends up on this island where his granddad used to visit, I think, which is off the coast of North Wales, and he ends up meeting these people who were friends with his granddad, and they have peculiar abilities, and it's basically following their kind of adventures and stories. I don't know if that's even too spoilery, but that's essentially the plot, the premise of the first book. It's been so long since I read it, I have no idea what that premise says anymore, but that's what it's about. And this one is obviously much later but following some of the same characters. But yeah, I enjoyed these, but I just liked them. I didn't exactly love them, so yeah, 3 stars and 3.5 stars for this one. And the next one I read was Skanda and the Unicorn Thief by A.F. Steadman. This was an upcoming release that came out on the 28th of April, and it's a middle grade book, and I did quite enjoy this. I ended up giving it 4 out of 5 stars. I think it's just a little bit long. I really kind of wanted this to wrap up like 100 pages before it did. Not to say that the last 100 pages were like bad, I just think it really gained momentum at the start of the book and then it kind of lets itself down a little bit towards the end, but I did still enjoy it quite a lot. It follows Skanda Smith, who has lived in this world where there are unicorns. It is like our own world, it's set in the UK, but there is this island off the coast of the UK where there is unicorn riders, and you can pass a test at the age of 13 that allows you to go onto this island, and he's kind of been leading his life up to this test. However, he fails the test at the start of this book, and that kind of changes his course. But that night, after he fails the test, there is a mysterious figure that turns up at his door and takes him to the island. And then Skanda is kind of thrust into the world that he thought he wasn't going to be able to get there, but it's actually a lot kind of darker and more dangerous than I expected. It is definitely not a light-hearted fantasy, especially from where Skanda is sitting. It is full of friendship and found family, which I really liked, and I really liked the atmosphere of this one, and the darkness was pretty cool to read about, and I think the kind of peril that the characters are in it's gonna like really appeal to children as well. And there is a lot of things that I loved about this. I just think I wanted it to be a little bit more snappier and shorter, but yeah, I did still really enjoy it and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I then picked up volume 1 of Paper Girls by Brian K. Vaughan, and I really loved this graphic novel. I've been wanting to read it for a long time. I've had it recommended to me a number of times, and Mark actually bought this one for me for my birthday last year, and I really want to carry on reading them now. This was so good. I really enjoyed it. It is basically following paper delivery girls, which I don't know why I didn't think before I actually picked up this book for the first time, because I didn't really know what it was about other than it was like set in the 1980s and had a Stranger Things vibe. But it is following these paper girls who kind of team up on their morning routine on Halloween, or the night after Halloween I guess it would be. And they actually uncover this like really big paranormal story. It is quite like creepy but in an entertaining way, and I just really enjoyed it. It's like full of adventure and this stuff that's going on and you don't really know what's happening, but also has this absolutely beautiful art style with these like stunning neon colours that I think is so kind of reminiscent of the 80s. I just absolutely loved it. It also ends on like a cliffhanger, and I immediately messaged Mark like, I need the second volume, this was so good. And I do. I need to get the second volume because I really love this one. I'm just umming and ahhing about which editions to get, whether to get the collector's editions or not, but I really like this, it's safe to say. I'm looking forward to carrying on with these. I then picked up Moomin Summer Madness by Tove Jansson. This is my first foray into the Moomin world and I really enjoyed it. It was so funny and whimsical and magical, kind of exactly what I expected, but also like a little bit different and a little bit more. I've wanted to read a Moomin book for so long, and you guys probably know the Moomins are these creatures that live in a Moomin valley, and this one is the 5th book in the series, but it's apparently the best one to read first because Courtney bought this one for me for Christmas and she researched researched it before she got it for me. I've wanted these like cute collector's editions for ages, so she has started off that collection. And this one follows the Moomins as they end up in this like flood in Moomin Valley, and they go onto this boat that's actually a theatre, as you can see on the front of the book. It is absolutely absurd, and the note in the back actually says that this is like one of the weirder Moomin books, and I didn't quite know what to make of it, but I kind of loved it. It's very heartwarming and comforting. Made me really want to watch one of the Moomin shows, because I love the look of Moomin Valley, and it is on BBC iPlayer, but only in, I'm gonna say Swedish, maybe. I'm not 100% sure, but it would make sense if it was Swedish, but I don't know. There's no subtitles for it either. But I did try and put it on one night, because I would love to watch it, because I do love the art style they've done with the new Moomin Valley season, with the new Moomin Valley show. But yeah, I enjoyed this quite a lot. It was whimsical, magical, but also had some like really beautiful quotes about life that I just stumbled across and was like, oh wow, okay, that's in there. But yeah, I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars. And then the last book I read in April was Good Intentions by Kasim Ali. This one was really, really good in a way that I just didn't expect it to be. It follows Noor, who has finally told his parents after 4 years of being in a relationship with Yasmina that they are together. The reason he's held back is partly because of their beliefs. They are both Muslim, but Yasmina is black, and he knows that his family won't be readily accepting of that, basically. This was a really difficult one to read. It actually made me a lot more emotional than I expected, and Noor makes some questionable decisions, but I just really related to him on a level with his panic attacks and his anxiety and the way he was feeling with his insecurities. But I also loved Yasmina as well, and her courage and strength was just beautiful to read about. And yeah, this one I listened to the audiobook of, which was really, really good. I would really recommend it, but it did make me quite emotional at the end. So I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars, mainly because I'm not 100% sure about the ending, but I did still really enjoy it. And if you like The Big Sick, then you will definitely enjoy this one. That was actually what made me want to read this, because I'd heard and I felt like they were quite similar. So yeah, this one came out at the start of March, yeah, the 3rd of March, I think, in the UK. So that is all of the books that I read in April. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Let me know what you read and how many books you read in April as well, and I will see you next time. Bye!